Hi, this is Cheryl Sokolowski. And so you've already begun the section on morality of the 5 parts for this year. Morality is so many different things, and different depending which grade that you're working with. There's so many different levels as well. Um, so we'll talk about different choices that the children in the classroom. We talk a lot about choices, but when you get to conscious formation, obviously it's much different for a younger child as an older one. But we still talk about that in all the grade levels, and as well as free will or the effects of sin, and what is our path to happiness. So we'll go with a few of these right now, and so when we begin talking about morality, the most important thing is to know that we're made in the image and likeness of God. That, well, not in our looks, of course, because well because everybody looks so different, but we're made in the image and likeness of God because we have an immortal soul, a soul that will last forever. We have an intellect. We can think and reason, and also very important to morality is we have a free will or free choice. God does not make us choose the best way. We can choose whichever way. And we use a choice a lot in the classroom. And so, because of the original sin, um, it the original sin, according to the Catechism, talks about the sin is what darkens our mind, darkens our intellect. We can't see things as clear. It weakens our will and our inclination to sin. It's also important that all life, has value and dignity, even with its imperfections and struggles, because each person is created in the image and likeness of God. Each human life is sacred, um, and we are so profoundly connected between the physical and the spiritual and the physical dimensions, that who we are is in the image and likeness of God. Yet we are sacred, we are holy in all forms of this life, since we're created in his image. So, yes, baptism frees us from the original sin, but not the effects of the sin. We still have an inclination to sin. In Romans 3, it says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and we are justified freely by his grace through the redemption of Jesus Christ, whom God set forth as an expiation through faith by his blood. So it's important that we don't deny that we have the capacity to sin. Children will often say, he made me do it, or the other person started it, but that each person can take ownership of their own faults and failings. But yet, through the price that Christ paid on the cross, we have the redemption of sin. We have the forgiveness of sin, and we can walk toward that holiness and walk toward um, a life of grace. But yet, love brings sacrifice. The Christ showed on the cross that love is sacrifice. His life was the ultimate sacrifice. His love was the ultimate sacrifice of his life. And so, when we talk about morality, the choices we make are not what's best for me, but what's best for the other person or the common good. Sins are acts of selfishness. It's all about me and what I want. And actually, the popular movies, they will, they kind of prove that in many ways, that, I'll love you if you meet my need. And so it's about the other person. It's difficult. It's very difficult, but yet Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So, freedom is the choices that we make. So, freedom is a loving act. Yes, we can choose. We can choose to do what's right. We can choose to do what's wrong. But freedom is the ability to choose that. And a lot of times when I explain it to children, I kind of use this example, and I'm going to shorten it down just to a few minutes, but it usually takes me about 20 minutes to develop this here concept. And I'll let you, take it and if you wish, and expand upon it. But usually I talk to children, even first grader, all the way on up, about if they had a little brother or 2 year old, or if they were babysitting a 2 year old, whichever would be more appropriate, I ask them, would they let this 2 year old play in the street? And of course, you wait for the answer, and you know what the answer is going to be. And I say, well, why not? Does the child know the same things you know? Yes, so you're telling me it's dangerous, etc., whatever words they came up with. So you are smarter than a 2 year old, obviously. Do you think you'll be smarter in 5 years? What about 10? Well, that would make them about 17, maybe not. Maybe not until they're like maybe 23. Just joking. Are you smarter? Will you be smarter in 20 years? Will you be smarter when you're 30 years old? And then we develop the awareness of issues and the awareness of sin and the awareness of the parents know certain things because they are much older and wiser. And so, yes, we have the freedom to choose, but the reason why the parents are asking us to do thus and so is because the parents may see the unknown danger in the same way as the child would see that you can't let a 2 year old play in the street. No matter how old they are, they can get this connection is that the parents obviously have their best interest in mind and are aware of certain dangers, and that's why they're saying that they cannot do certain things. And sometimes I tell them, sometimes you may get mad at your parents for not letting you do what you want, but the parents still know the unseen dangers, as this 2 year old did not know anything about cars and didn't know anything about how dangerous it was. But as a 7 year old, you do. And as a 10 year old, you do. It's somewhat the same as the parents. They know what's out there, they know the dangers, and they really want to protect you. And they want what's best for you. And then I also talk about God's laws in there. And these laws are not there to make us unhappy, say, yeah, we can't do what we want to. But these laws are there to protect us. And really, following these laws is what makes us happy. So, the freedom is, according to the Catechism, freedom is the God given power to become who He created us to be. Yes, we're free, but who did God create us to be? So, when we practice responsible freedom, without freedom, we really can't speak about morality, because if you're doing everything if you're like a puppet, then you're not free to choose good and bad. But we are free. We have the choice. But if we choose, and so I'm going to read the Catechism. Actually, I skipped a lot in the Catechism, so I'm taking just a couple thoughts here. The more one does what is good, the freer one becomes. There's no true freedom except in the service of what is good and just, according to the Catechism. There's no true freedom except in the service of what is good and just. The choice to disobey and do evil is an abuse of freedom and leads to the slavery of sin. So when we have our God-given power to become who God has created us to be, that's what freedom is. Not just merely choosing between this or that action, which the world says that's what human freedom is. No, it is God's given power to us to become who He wants us to be, which is with Him in all eternity, with joy and peace. And actually, that is what makes us happiness. If you think about, if you do everything you want, does that really make you happy? In the long run, does that really make you happy? some of the people who are the most selfish people, they are not happy. People who give to others, they are much happier. I mean, obviously, it's more blessed to give than receive, because really, it's self giving that's what really makes us happy. And so when we choose to walk in God's way, that's what God's plan is. And God gives us this intelligence and the capacity to act freely. So it's ultimately it's the human freedom that lies in our free decision to say yes to God. So on the other hand, other people in the world may understand human freedom merely as the ability to choose and make a choice with no norm of a good or bad as a goal. That's not what true freedom is, and that's not what leads to happiness. And if you talk about people who live in a life of sin, they are not happy. And we don't have time to develop that theme, but it is reality. People who live in a life of sin are not happy. So, how does all of this come about? We do have the new life in the Spirit. With God's grace, He delivers us from sin, and He heals our sin's damage within us. But it's also God's mercy. God is so merciful and loving, and there's no sin too big for Him. Nothing limits God's mercy. He forgives us. He loves us. Our sins are not too big. But also to remember, even the other person's sin, the other person who harmed us, God can forgive that other person too, if that person is sorry. Although we don't always want that. We don't always want that mercy for that other person, but that is God's mercy, bigger than we can fathom. So how do we know right from wrong? How do we choose good from evil? So we have to form our conscience according to the will of God. So just asking, are you praying about what's right or wrong? What does the church teach? What resources are we using? That's really important. Just the other day, there was a quite elderly person who said, I know this is true because I saw it on YouTube. And I wish I could hear you laughing right now, because that is exactly what she said. I know it's true because I saw it on YouTube. And then she went on to say, YouTube has very many reliable sources. True. Yet, obviously, I mean, I don't have to state the obvious. It also has some very faults. And so what she didn't understand is, when you watch things on YouTube, then it suggests another, and then it suggests another, and it suggests another that kind of like what you were thinking. Of course, you only watch the things of how you already believe. And then you watch another one, and pretty soon you're going down this very, very narrow path of truth. And that video that it led you to may be so far from the truth. And I also heard people saying, yes, that the only place they get their news source or their source of right and wrong is Facebook. And oh, wow. Okay, then. And I've also heard, people saying, for what they believe, CNN and Fox News and all of these news sources, that's what they believe to be the source of truth. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, let's back up here. What about the catechism? So if you hear something on any of those sources, go to the catechism and verify, what does the church teach about? Or the Bible. It has to be congruent with the Bible. Or even go to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website, which is usccb.org for United States Conference of Catholic Bishops website. Ton of information on there. And yes, and those are more believable sources, obviously. So we have a lot of things that go into morality, tons. And so how do we explain it? There's so many ways, and the books, I think, do a really good job of explaining it according to the age level of the children.